This tutorial is going over naming acids and bases. We're going to begin with the naming of acids. We can identify an acid because of the hydrogen in the front of the formula. Let's start with binary acids. Binary acids have hydrogen plus a nonmetal. Now I want to distinguish something before we go on too much further, and that is that if I was doing a problem and it did not identify the compound as an acid, but it just wrote HCl. HCl that's not identified in the problem as an acid would actually just be named like ordinary binary compounds, where the first element is named just with the element name, so this would be hydrogen, and then the second element has the stem of the element name, followed by IDE. The ending is changed to IDE. So HCl that's not identified as an acid would be named hydrogen chloride. Now how might the question identify something as an acid? Well, we see the hydrogen in the front, and that tells us to think of it as an acid. So we might think that's an acid, but then there's two other ways that we would know that they were talking about an acid. One would be that they identify in the question that the following compounds are acids. Okay, that would be one way. The second way that we would identify it as an acid if HCl is followed by AQ, because when you dissolve hydrogen chloride in water, it becomes an acid. So how do we name this acid? And HCl is a binary acid because it has hydrogen and then one other nonmetal. Well, they are named by using the prefix hydro, the stem of the nonmetal name, which would be, I almost wrote stem, it would be chlor, so that's hydro, chlor, followed by ic. Now notice I don't put any dashes here, that was just for the example above. And then it's hydrochloric, and then we follow it by the word acid. So let's do another one. So what about HF? Now if it was just HF and the question did not identify that as an acid, I would name it hydrogen fluoride. But if it is identified in an acid as in the question, or if it's followed by AQ, then I'll name it as an acid. And this would be hydrofluoric acid. Now sometimes it may require two hydrogens to balance the nonmetal that it's with, for example H2S. Now again, if it wasn't identified as an acid in the question, and it wasn't followed by AQ, this would be hydrogen sulfide. But if it's identified as an acid, either in the problem or by following with AQ, this is hydrosulfuric acid. So again, remember that binary acids, hydrogen followed by another nonmetal, are named by using the prefix hydro, the stem of the nonmetal name followed by the suffix ic. Then you follow the word with acid. Now some acids are called oxoacids, or I've seen this also called oxyacids and ternary acids. These are acids that not only have hydrogen in a nonmetal, but they also contain oxygen. In general, these acids contain a polyatomic ion, and it's these polyatomic ions that will tell us their name. So in the terms of the polyatomic ions, if the ion ends in the last letters ATE, the suffix ate, then we're going to change that ending ate into ic. If the suffix is ITE, we're going to change the ITE ending to us. So for example, if I have HClO3, okay, and this is an acid, so this is going to be no hydro, okay? It's going to be based on the name of the polyatomic ion, which is right here. This is chlorate. Okay, so this one ends in 8. So instead of chlorate, 8 changes into ic. So this is chloric, and then we follow with the word acid. Now notice they do not use hydro for these. Because we put the word acid, we know that the polyatomic ion is also in combination with hydrogen. Now let's say, for example, we have HClO2. Now ClO2 is chlorite. So the ITE ending changes to OUS. So we get chlorous acid. Again, there's no hydro. What the name is based on is the polyatomic ion. If it has an 8 ending, it changes to IC. If it has an ite ending, it changes to OUS. Now some, in this chlorine example, in this chlorine sequence, for example, you have polyatomic ions that have prefixes. So here is this polyatomic ion here. So let's try a few examples. So if I see H2SO4, I notice that it's an acid. Well, these are all acids and bases because I'm telling you. You could also look for AQ behind it. I didn't write it here because I was just thinking acids and bases. But I could notice it from hydrogen in the front. Now because it has the oxygen, I know that it's going to be named based on the polyatomic ion. SO4 is sulfate. I know that when I'm naming acids, the ATE ending, or 8, turns into ic. So a sulfate ion would create sulfuric acid. Now in this example, the next one, NO3, again I notice that it's a polyatomic ion nitrate. So 8 turns to ic. And so nitrate makes nitric acid. Now in this example, the next one I was given the name, so I named this as bromus. So I look at the OUS and I think to myself, okay, that comes from the ITE ending. So I would have to know what bromite is. Well, bromite is Bromite is BrO2 minus. So if I'm going to add a hydrogen, since it's only a -1, it would take 1 hydrogen to balance it. So this would be HbRO2. Now then I see HI. Now this is a binary acid. It has hydrogen and only one other metal. So those acids are named using the prefix hydro. The stem of the name, so iodine is kind of weird. It's iodo, and then ic. So it's hydroiodic acid. Now KOH is not an acid at all. It's an ionic compound that forms a base. And ionic compounds are just simply named as an ionic compound, even though it could be a base. So it's just called potassium hydroxide. I hope this gets you going with acids and bases. Please let me know if you have any questions.